got Chris with laws, and this time we're looking at source of livelihood. The other time we were looking at bereavement, with Lily.
Okay.
And then today is source of livelihood. Now, as a professional, what do you make of the topic?
Topic for us to talk about because it cuts across a lot of areas of our life. That keeps you going. That makes you who you feel you are. It makes you living. So if you talk about livelihood or a genital, no, it cuts across what it brings out of the human beings with losing your livelihood.
So livelihood in one sense could be about losing your job.
Yes, that's the one. Just about the resources. You're getting you, even that income that you talk about. So it's not only about just
your livelihood, let me put it that way, generally. The thing.
Was it before?
Before. Thank you very much for that. So people don't think that you have lost the job that you have now.
Yeah.
Now, the things that Annie was saying, did they apply to you?
Yes. So about sometime in 2016, yes, I lost a job. And as you mentioned, it's one of the aspects of livelihood. So I can associate with this topic 3 months. But talk about what happened within those 3 months. It was quite who had just gotten married and gotten a new job, and I was like, oh, this industry, I want to stay in this industry for about 10 years. Then you get to realize that you are not proceeding on this job anymore. I mean, from X time, you thank God for those who are around me, and also allow God to direct my path. I knew that it was not the end of
you again and ask, how did your employers prepare your mind towards that?
Okay, so
just briefly.
Yeah.
And then we'll turn to Annie and ask Annie if that's the professional way to go.
Okay. So for some time, we started holding meetings, general meetings in the company, telling us about. Usually there's an annual meeting. So aside that annual meeting, there was another meeting that, what I remember very well, the very last one, was when the leaders of the organization came and were like, you see, we are all in a ship. It won't affect me. It might affect other people. And I also thought my role was a very critical one. Then I was just going by my work and trying to finish until the final week. At the beginning of the week, we were told that a couple of people would be receiving letters. So when you receive the letters, go through the procedure A, B, C, D. And then on that fateful Wednesday, I saw the email. I thought it was a junk mail or a spam. Until then I made some calls. I was like, oh, I didn't know the person. Security men at the post. Because I saw some people coming down the stairs crying. And so I went through all that. I signed the letter. I read through. Because me and I'm in change, and I'm sick and no soon. Thank you, my child. I guess I'm quite much so. Now me starting in change. Now me benefiting no times 1 year, times 1 year, and I book on. I me leave free on. I me buy. So that's how it happened for me.
Okay, Annie, as an industrial psychologist, was
and more. We start prepping.
Like telling them they.
But what happens is that we start having meetings. Are all getting. The idea that, there's a possibility that it's all supposed to get the employee ready.
Okay. At least prepare their minds.
Yes, prepare their minds.
Okay.
Now, whilst these things are being done, sometimes we don't bring in counselors or psychologists and all that. Because Chris, for example, said he was there for just a year. When you were having those meetings, for all that you know, he has psyched himself that he's going to be here for 10 years. So you telling him that, he's already decided that he's not part. But the other problem is you realize all sorts of, who is following me?
Chris, in your case, it didn't happen.
Asking, how can this happen to me? And usually, to a large extent, I could say that maybe it's because of the people around me and the kind of encouragement that I got. And for example, my wife was understanding if she was someone giving me troubles at that time, then the why me questions will come in more money. She was still supporting all that. And then whilst we were talking about this preparation thing, I remember everyone who attended the meeting, because you had that first message, you know what makes me understand to an extent how my organization handled some of these situations. But I mean, yeah.
But honey, it's not every workplace that has as an industrial psychologist. What do you suggest to the employees to do? Should they go hire for that moment somebody to really help solve the situation?
Yes. So usually, most organizations do not have these psychologists in-house.
Okay.
So for that period to do that work. So you don't. It's not only about losing that livelihood, losing that job. It's once in a while the psychologist must come in to check. And then sometimes you need to check people's emotions and all that. Probably that's for, and I talk about these things and also to check on it. And definitely when Chris talked about signing those letters, it's for the employer to be sure that whichever information was being conveyed at that meeting, you were present.
So that letter, the signing of that letter was to make sure all those in the meeting would do it.
No, so it was, what do you call it, staff deba, they called them. You were at this meeting.
Okay.
Okay. That it just clicked. I mean, maybe that was their way of preparing everyone, so that one day if you say you did not know, you have signed that you were at that meeting. Okay. So that's
okay. And you can continue from there.
Yes. So you were there when you were being told that this was going moment. So once you had questions, and then there was the HR person, the psychologist, with the fact that if I lose this, what next? So these are some of the things that are done before you are laid off, if you get that particular letter or that email on that day. Yes.
And usually it's the human resource people who the employer will fall on. But for the professional industrial cycle,
the human resource departments, because we tend to use the various skills for these HRs to, in the work sector, you start with the organizational psychologists, for example. So the HR, you work with the HR, you work with the organizational psychologists. But when you realize that the thing is getting to the employee, you gave the person the letter. The person is supposed to go, walk off, removing their shoes, and get into their car and start driving.
And they might never get home.
They never get home.
Which is a very serious aspect of it. We'll come to this in a couple of seconds. But Chris, let me find out from you. Okay. Now, before that meeting, did you have the opportunity, not you in particular, but the people who were involved to be laid off, did they have the opportunity to be in
company? My work was not directly related to sales. There was a limit as to what I could do, even though we had targets on the side. Yeah. Or then you realize that no, at the end of the year, so to an extent, we knew we had some background information as to where difficult, but I think most of us were very confident that we would extra name and so. I remember we were given targets. Sometimes you are given targets to open an account with X amounts of money, but I mean, I was like, hey, yeah, many sales won't per se. That's why I'm focusing on this one. So, but somehow it's all happened that way, and we give thanks to God for that.
Yes, you could. The number is 050-157-9996. 050-157-9996. Annie, you said sometimes, or some of the times, such a thing happens.
They don't get home because questions running through their minds. Where am I going? What am I going to say at home? Who am I going to talk to? Everybody relates to one another, whether the person is biologically related to you or not. So you find people talking about these things. Hey, this is what has happened here. Do you know this person is part? Then, depending on how you react, it becomes as if there's a question mark.
Might well prepared well enough. They would have, catered for all these kind of questions.
Sometimes it's not that their minds were not prepared. Their minds were prepared, but it's the denial.
Oh,
It
okay.
can't be. How can I be laid off at this moment? Now, another issue is that people do not get home because whilst they were being system, they did not know.
Oh, okay.
They didn't know what, every time they had those meetings and whatever came up with from the meeting. So when they give you that email or that letter on that day, you are able to go to the house, although you might feel disappointed in a way, but you know that you have some sort.
It's coming from the human resource, the industrial psychologist, or whatever. It's a one-on-one, or they call the whole people and.
Where kind of thing, yeah.
Is still for everybody.
Okay.
But then this is the point to start, because if the letter doesn't come, that's fine. But if it comes, what into something which is beneficial. So those are some of the things that you do on the one-on-one. So it's not people that you target that they are going to be laid off. You do it for everybody. So it's in everybody's mind that the ship is indeed sinking.
How often in the workplace does these things happen? Sometimes we don't have to wait, particularly late.
Or talking to them.
Sensitization about one day something may happen.
Sudden and doing that. Because getting agitated.
Okay.
Not really telling me anything. Just as Chris says, some take care. As soon as you do that out of the blue, understand the situation to know when to do counseling and all that. And management should also try as much as possible to let employees understand, not probably the full details, but the stand of the organization. It makes it easier for them to go home and come back every day knowing that I have a job at hand. Yeah.
That's very, very important. Now, in a couple of seconds or minutes, we'll be looking at how to cope in such a situation. For me, that's a very critical thing, because somebody gets into his or her, as how you're able to cope with such a situation.
Yeah.
So, yes, because it's happened to a lot of people.
COVID and now Russia times.
So we'll take a break. This is loss of livelihood, and then after the break, we'll look at how we can cope. So stay with us. We'll be back soon. Let's talk about a program put together by Trinity United Church, Legon. Today we're talking about, 13th of August, Saturday, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. here at Trinity United Church, Legon. The Trinity Youth Choir is putting up a cantate duo. Sing praises to God. We all need you to be there. It's going to be a fantastic time. We're urging you, Psalm 29, verse 2. Cantata duo, this Saturday, 13th of August, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. Trinity Theological Seminary, Trinity United Church, Legon, that's where it will happen. Well, Annie, so we are going to talk about our livelihood. Then,
that I had spoken to my wife some day out. So the following, and on the way I'll be praying, I'll be singing. Around that time, it was revising my CV, prayerful around that time.
wonderful.
I became more prayerful around that time, and I recall telling a few friends at church about my current situation, the fact that I was looking for a job. It was difficult, but I was not really shy about it, because when I looked at those I thought I could get some counsel from, or those who could help, and then we spoke about those kind of things, and then while I was looking for a job, I gave myself, I had a plan. I had a plan because the money they had given us, it was not so much. So the plan, preparing as discussing with my wife, we had a plan to get something in 3 months, or the plan was to move on to something else that was not someone's or accounting to an employer. That was the plan that I had. And then within that period, to speaking to people from previous relationship, my previous boss who had an audit firm. So I was able to join him on audit field trips and inspections. And I was getting something small for the house, for the house. So it was not so dry per se. But around this period, it was all about, for me, as I said, I was not really asking why me kind of question. But it was getting closer and closer. 3 months, when I realized 1 month was gone. And so it was like, what next? What next? And then we kept looking, we kept searching, we kept talking to people. And one thing I realized around that time was that sometimes being to reactions. Someone will say, okay, give me your CV, I'll see what I can do for you. Someone will also tell you, and I say, something, if you want to try it, you can try. Then I tried by God's grace. Within a couple of weeks, I had gotten.
But that's where you are now.
Exactly. So that's where I am now. Wonderful. And thank God, the time it came up, I was just. The first day wasn't too difficult, but after 1 week, when I realized that one meeting, including praying, including. But if it's something, thankfully the other two was with you. It was quite easy to find mine because I had that experience for about a month. It was 3 months. Yeah. I say that when the issue happened, it was 23rd of March. And then when I signed my new contract, it was 24th of June. And it was basically 3 months. I had received the confirmation. They said, come and sign. And at that time, I was out. Within 3 months, by God's grace, we had gotten something. I kept talking. I kept referring things to me because me to have been there before, kind of thing. And so sometimes when you go through these things, you are able to encourage others about how to handle some of these things. And you also will be able to support them. But now, because you've been there before, you are able to relate, and then you
feel like praying about it.
Yes, he kept searched. He bit. And sometimes when they pray and they sit for a long time, they feel that teaching you a lesson. Wait, I want you to understand something. Wait, I want you to practice a hobby that probably you never knew you could use as a source of income. Wait, you need a break with your health. But people, it's not easy for people to just take it like that. Until you believe in what you're praying about, who you are praying to, it becomes very difficult when you just pray and sit. And unfortunately, important, because if you don't have that support system, it becomes difficult for you to get anything else done. And he always believed of who you are.
That's the critical thing.
Okay. His relative gave himself 3 months and prayed about it. And he took a step to talk to people. Now, who do I talk to? You have related to people for all these years. You know how people react. Or Bible study leader will react. You know how your spouse reacts. Okay? Yes. She will cry, but you will not cry. But the issue is that she might not let you see that she's crying because she's supposed to be that support system that you have. So if everybody is crying, then who's going to take care of who? So sometimes we will go to the pastor, for example, and then talk to the pastor. Continue praying.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Just a quick one.
Okay.
In talking to people, sometimes the main or something, but I need to emphasize that you also need to give some people some space. For example, if I come to you and tell them, Akuba, I'm looking for a job, and so okay, if I find one, I'll let you know. And that's the next Sunday, the help that they have. In this church, there were people who requested for my CVs and letters, and finally, it was a church member.
Exactly.
Yes. So. I'm signals coming. You just need to start psyching yourself. Start analyzing. I always advise everybody to another source of income. The things that I always advise that people should start thinking about. Once you start, you sit, you analyze yourself and see what you can do better. I'm sure you find so many things. Even singing, writing, taking other
insurance policy, me co-insurance can I've not for about 3 to 6 months. You have something to follow, so that in the
into what extra thing do I have to go and save?
So,
You know.
Uncle Bear, I tell people that when I was going through my national service, I was taking 250 cities.
So
Today
you
just
must try.
I need to sukakra. So when you see, but after 2 weeks, I
should be able to get
saw
over it.
myself. I saw myself actively
And then
searching.
re-strategize as to
Exactly,
what
exactly,
to do next.
yeah.
There's a comment from Esido Pari. Listening to Chris, it's evident that he has benefited from a whom you know situation. The person is talking about who are able to come to our aid. And you did so, you know, out of the love for Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
Out of the prayer that you pray.
Exactly.
And God must have directed you to this particular
Exactly. That was just what.
So those
I
are
was
the
about.
very important points to consider first.
Exactly. So.
Otherwise, you can't just know who to approach and who will help
Exactly.
you.
People-
Some of them will disappoint you. Yes.
Because there were people I knew who genuinely could not offer any help. But as you said, usually when I've come to realize that it's very good to keep good relationships. Now, I know in a Ghanaian setting, relationships are very important. Inti, ekwa enye owo na enye owo bi ne ebeboa ya system no ma. Inti in the same way, when you have people who are close or people you know who are not able to offer their help, you don't have to begrudge them. I remember at a point someone asked me, I think of obi entimi wow any nia oye nyina oni nkrofo ye fine bebre nyina obi entimi mboa na msi o sa de ne de obetimi aboa no aboa say aboa bi beka na ofuruntum mu a hwehwehwe bi ohun hwamoso aya na normally ofuruntum ani
Ali, you know, one good thing that came out of the pandemic, the COVID-19, was that now people are working from home.
Yes.
Can we not revisit this idea that you go out to work for somebody at home? Can't you do something to generate something for yourself? Maybe during the weekend when you're a little bit free.
Yes.
It's a fallout from the pandemic, you know.
I think the pandemic has actually taught us as Ghanaians, Africans, and the world as a whole a lot of lessons, because it's not something that you were expecting to happen. And once it happened, everybody had to strategize. Everybody had to find a way of surviving, coping. So once we started working from home, you realize that there are lots of entrepreneurs now who started during the period of the COVID. And it's because they realized that they had some sort of talent that they never really thought they could use as a business. And people were also laid off at work. And just as I said, they probably analyzed and saw that, oh, I could have done this or that, but I never thought about it. You realize that during the pandemic, a lot of people started preparing liquid soap and sanitizers and all that. And interestingly, there were not things that probably they could have thought of doing. Okay, so once they were even called to come back to the office, they realized that no, it could be a side job, something that I could still do to help the family. So in every situation, I always say that we need to try as much as possible to look out for the positive parts of it, the positive aspect. Sometimes you may not be able to identify it because you are going through the situation. But whoever the support system is, whoever you talk to could also prompt you as to, have you thought about this? Don't you think that you could do this? You know, so in every situation, for us to have that mental well-being, to have that emotional balance, we need to be able to think through what the positive aspect of the situation is. And that will also help us to cope with whatever is happening.
Thank you very much.
If I
Yes,
may, just to take you back slightly, even though someone referred this job opening to me, I must say that it was not the person's job opening. It was not the person's workplace.
Okay.
So he saw the advert somewhere and then shared that if you are interested. And within those 3 months, I had sharpened my interview skills. I had searched for interview questions and how to answer them. When you go and ask you, tell me about yourself and why you think you are most suited for this job, I had written them down and had studied what I wanted to say. I had improved my basic work skills to make me better, and to an extent that when I went for this interview, there was a written examination, and I was told I was the one who had the highest mark since then. So,
and of course, you had the opportunity to write your songs.
Exactly so. So, yes, people will refer things to you, but it's not necessarily, it shouldn't be someone's work to pull you along. So you have to make use of the various opportunities that come your way. If this person, assuming he referred this to me and I didn't take it seriously, if I did not apply for the job the same night he sent me the thing. I remember very well, it was about 9 p.m. on a Sunday that I received the link by 2 p.m. on the day. I applied for it by 9 p.m. And by Monday morning, I got a feedback. I was called for an interview. I left whatever I did and went. I studied, I wrote. I was able to convince the panel. I didn't know anyone on that panel. The work I'm doing now, I didn't know anyone in that job. So, yes, when you know people, they will help you, but you also need to put in some effort.
Which is what Clarence is saying. Adding to Andy's response to preparing for a job loss. It's important to keep busy to avoid getting depressed.
That's true.
Hence, do well to employ all skills.
All skills, that's true.
And knowledge, you have to be productive as you look out for better opportunities.
That's true.
It's well put.
Yes.
Also.
Yes, because, and you know, just as Clarence said, they said, keep busy. There are some busyness which are not fruitful. So keep busy can be subjective.
Yes.
You need to be cautious of what you're busy about.
You should be
Make
godly.
sure
So that you're
fruitful and godly.
you should have that godly and disciplined busyness. Okay. So that you have a positive feedback. Okay. Sometimes it's very challenging. You can get into a state of depression. You can be stressed out. You can feel that your whole system is just breaking apart. You can't think right. So in all these things, keeping busy sometimes is for people to just avoid all these things. But whilst you're keeping busy, just as Chris said, and I'm just adding, make sure you're putting yourself into a positive job, a positive activity, something that will bring you a positive feedback. He channeled everything into learning various skills of interviewing, answering questions, aptitude tests and all that. So he landed himself in the job that he was doing. Somebody else could also go into probably learning a trade within that period. And may even have other opportunities and decide that, no, I'm not going back to the kind of work I'm doing. So it is very, very important to channel that energy into something that will bring you a feedback whilst you continue to rely on God, you pray, and then what? You take that step. You take that step. Yeah, it's very important.
It's very, very, very important, yes. Now, let me come back to you, Chris.
Yes,
now, when all these things happened, looking back, what are your reflections?
Yeah.
Reflections about what God is to you.
Great. So, I think that, one, I got to understand that every single prayer that we say counts, no matter how silent it might be, no matter the position, no matter the place, because I remember vividly certain words that I said in prayer while I was on my way back home, walking on that Oyarifa road, going back home, that are manifesting now. And I believe that God took me through that. Sometimes I think Annie mentioned that sometimes God takes you through that to teach you so that you learn some lessons. And sometimes it lets you know that, maybe it's not that sector that will make you prosperous. Maybe I'll call Nukra. And because I remember very well that job, that was the first time I was, we were married. And in the first year of married, New Year's Eve, I had to be in another town, another branch, to be working. And it was only my pregnant wife alone here in church, that kind of thing. So somehow I felt, well, maybe God is directing my path elsewhere so that I can have time for these kind of things. I believe that as Christians, we should allow God's will to be done in our lives. You see, sometimes I know of this thing that you pray very well, as if it all depends on prayer, and you act as if it all depends on the actions that you take, and trust God to do the rest. I can say that I can say confidently that I prayed about it, and God gave me an answer that I've acted on. The good thing is that I have not stopped serving in a church, so thankfully we are doing both until the time that we be convinced otherwise. And then we should, I think in that period, I also learned that relationships are very important. And I also learned to give people space. Even though I told a couple of people, sometimes you have to give some space. And exactly. You can direct them to God, but people also have their issues. Yeah. So once you tell someone about an issue, you just allow the space, and if
you leave it to God, He will touch their hearts.
Exactly, to touch their hearts. And then I also realized that I think Annie also mentioned that at that time, because I was not working, there were other ways I could help at home, and so consciously, I think I tried to help at home, do what I could do to help at home, and so it wasn't too difficult for that person to also feel like, okay, I have some kind of support. So if I can also help in another way, I could do that. And so basically, I think that we can all do this. We don't have to cry so much. There's time to weep. If you have to weep, you have to take the break, yes. And then you start working on it. That's why maybe if I have a second, I want to pray with anyone who is going through such a situation here. So if I want to pray that if you are going through this kind of situation, if you have lost any form of livelihood, may the Lord touch your heart, and may you fully depend on Him. May He direct your path and show you what to do. May He help you in your grief and help you to get up and dust off every dust all around you and move and forge ahead for new opportunities that the Lord will make available for you. I pray that the Lord will open your eyes and make you see the good that He has prepared for you. Any suicidal thoughts, any feel of guilt for whatever you've done, thinking witches and wizards following you, may the Lord wipe all those away and prepare a place for you where He has deemed fit for you. In the name of Jesus, I pray that we all come to realize that we live for Christ, we live for Him, and whatever we encounter, He has prepared for our good. In the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. And isn't that a lovely way to end the program?
Exactly. Exactly. Because Chris has said it all. Yeah. We should continue to rely on the Almighty God. Mm-hmm. We should continue to pray and understand that God has a plan for us. He has a plan for us. He knows the best things for us. So anything that we are going through, just think about the positive aspect of it, and then He will do the rest. Just leave the rest to Him. That's it.
Thank you very much, Chris and Annie, coming over to help us discuss this lovely topic. We landed on a great note. And so that's all we have for you tonight. Next week will be another day, Wednesday, 7 p.m. We'll be back here with Let's Talk About. Do have a lovely night. Bye.